As we have understood the significance of the Mudal Azhwargal, Poigai Azhwar, Bhudatta Azhwar, Pei Azhwar, and subsequently we also enjoyed the contribution made to the Tamil language, the interesting incidents that happened in the life of Tirumalizhai Piran or Tirumalizhai Azhwar. We are now going to go to understand the contributions made to the language, to the Bhakti Sampradayam by a duo, by the two Azhwars. One is an Acharya and the other is a Sishya, who is none but Swami Nammalvar and Madhura Kavi Azhwar. It is said once, while Madhura Kavi Azhwar was singing praises about his Acharya Nammalvar through these lines: Vedam Tamil Seida Perumal Vandar, Thiruvaimozhi Perumal Vandar, Tirunagari Perumal Vandar, Thiruvaludi Valanadar Vandar, Tirukkurugur Nagarnambi Vandar, Karimarar Vandar, Shadagopar Vandar, Parankushar Vandar. The poets in the Sangam region of Madurai objected. They said, how could you sing praises of a person and call him the best of the Tamil poets when we have not seen any of his works? Madhura Kavi Azhwar, with all humility, submitted the works of Nammalvar and said, well, I can always give all these works to you and ask you people to read through, internalize, relish, cherish the verses of my Acharya Nammalvar, but I am not going to do so. I am just going to write 2 lines of all the 1000+ verses that he has sung, just 2 lines on a manuscript, keep it on that particular plate called a Sanga Palagai. It was said to be the days when if somebody had to prove their poetry is of extremely high quality, they would keep it on Sanga Palagai and wait for the magical plate to turn back and not drown the manuscripts. Here they wrote, here he writes, Madhura Kavi Azhwar writes, Kannan Kalalinai, Nannum Manamudayir, Yannum Tirunamam, Tinnam Naraname. So he says, to those who aspire to reach Paramapadam, please take refuge in the lotus-like feet of Krishna. As he wrote on the manuscript and put it on that particular slate, the slate bloomed with all other flowers and came back and gave that particular manuscript to the other poets, indicating that Nammalvar's Tamil and contribution was of the highest order. Well, who is Nammalvar, who is Madhura Kavi Azhwar, and how do we treat the both of them? One, they were a student and the guru. But how did they seem like? For which Bhagavad Ramanuja states, Bhashyakarar Anagaha Nityashatrughnaha Yendra Idakku Prameyamaga Sollakadil Sri Shatrughnaazhvan Perumalukku Nallananapadi Avanayalladu Ariyada Sri Bharatalvanai Alladu Ariyadapadi Anan Ennu Aruli Cheydar. While in Treta Yugam, Lord Rama is Paramatma himself and Bharata chose to serve Paramatma, who's Rama, directly. Shatrughna did not serve Rama like how Bharata or Lakshmana served. He served Bharata directly. So he did not serve the Lord. He served the Lord's devotee. Similarly, if all the Azhwars have sung verses on the Lord, including Nammalvar who has sung verses on the Lord, Madhura Kavi Azhwar went one step ahead and sang praises of Nammalvar who had sung praises of the Lord. So this set of Tamil Pasurams is called as Kanninun Siruthambu. Kanninun Siruthambinal Kattunna Panniya Perumayan Yennappanil Nanni Tengurugur Nambi Ennakkal Annikkum Amudurum Yennavukke. Madhura Kavi Azhwar states, when I think of my Acharya Nammalvar, it feels as if honey and other sources of sugar is already getting secreted in my mouth. Annikkum amudu oorum yennavukke. So where was Madhura Kavi Azhwar born? Madhura Kavi Azhwar was born in a place called as Tirukkolur. This is the kshetram where the Lord gives darshanam as Vaitamanidhi. So in this particular kshetram was present and born Madhura Kavi Azhwar. Madhura Kavi Azhwar, because of his work and in order to acquire knowledge, travelled northwards from the south of India. He travelled thousands of kilometers and reached the north of India, and as he was travelling Ayodhya after Badarikashramam, he noticed that one night he saw some blazing fire of light. He thought it must be forest fire. I have to go remove that forest fire, ensure that there is safety in that place. So as he went further, he followed that light. He crossed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, and as he followed that light, be it daytime, nighttime, he would wait till the night begins and would think, let's go back to the north, and that's when he would still spot that light. He would start continue following that light. And as he followed that light disappeared into a hole of a tamarind tree in the kshetram called Tirunagari. He was surprised. What kind of a light is this? What could this be? He thought. And that is when he saw a little boy of dark complexion with closed eyes meditating. The moment he saw this boy, something struck in the mind of Madhura Kavi Azhwar, and that was none but a question in deep philosophy that he wanted to ask, and to a handful of people whom he asked, they didn't have an answer to it. So he was worried who would answer this question of his, and when he looked at this little boy, he thought this boy had that effulgence and radiance, and he felt that this boy could answer. The boy hadn't opened his eyes. You know who this boy was? This boy was born as a result of the grace of Tirukkurungudi Vaishnava Nambi to a couple called Udayanangai and Karimaran. This boy was born in the month of Vaikashi in the nakshatram of Vishakam to the divine couple. And from his birth, this boy refused to do any act which any other normal child would do. What would a normal child do? A normal child would cry. Because it is believed in Sanatana Dharma that as a child, when we are in the mother's womb, we have Purna Brahma Jnanam. We will know who's Parabrahman and we will keep meditating upon him. That is how the posture of a fetus is also folded, and it looks as if the fetus is putting its hands together. Azhwar mentions this. Karuvarangattul kidandhen kaitoluden kanden tiruvarangan meyan tishai. When the Azhwar was asked, when did this devotion and love that you exhibit towards Paramatma begin? The Azhwar says, Karuvarangattul kidandhen. I was inside my mother's womb. That is when Kaitoluden Kanden Tiruvarangan Meyan Tishai. I saw the Tiruvarangam, I saw that great Sriranga Kshetram even while I was present in my mother's womb. Puranam says, Jayamanam hi purusham yampashyen madhusudanaha satvikaha satu vigneyaha savai mokshartha chintakaha. Mokshartha chintakaha, the one who wishes to meditate on the Lord, is the one who is being blessed by the Lord while he or she is in his mother's womb itself. So when the child is born, while he was in his mother's womb, full of knowledge, while the child is born, it is said that a vayu called shatam, which is a component in the air, will go and apply itself on the scalp of the child. And that is powerful enough to make the child forget what he or she has seen within the mother's womb. So the child, out of agony of forgetting, starts crying, and we are all very happy. We say the child has cried, so the child is born, is safe. But philosophically speaking, if the child cries, it means it has forgotten about the Lord. So our remembrance of the Lord is there within the Garbham. While we are in our mother's Garbham, when we are born, we forget. But here is a child born to Kari, Maran and Udayanangai, to whom Shatha, the Vayu, came and attacked. But the child said, see, I have to bring the quintessence of Rigvedam, Yajurvedam, Samavedam, Atharvana Vedam for the benefit of mankind. If you come and attack me, how will I be able to explain the quintessence of the Vedas? So do not attack me. Out of anger, the child kicked Shatam. Since out of Kopa, that is anger, the child kicked Shatam. Shatam was kicked because of Kopa. Shatha because of Kopa. So Shatha Kopa is the name given to the Lord. So this child born to the couple refused to consume the milk secreted by the mother. He refused to consume milk. He did not cry, he did not walk, he did not talk. He just closed his eyes and would sit under the shade of the tree. So even his parents had to abandon him after some time. In such a scenario, the light had disappeared into the hole of this particular tamarind tree, and inside the hole of this tamarind tree was seated this boy. So Madhura Kavi Azhwar was surprised, and there was a question that was lingering in his mind, right? So he asked, Settathin vayittil siriyadu pirandal yattai thinnu enge kidakkum? To which the boy, for the first time in his life, opened his eyes and replied, Adu attai thinnu ange kidakkum. So he says, what was the question? If a Jivatma is there within a material body, Panchabhautika Shariram, what will it consume? The body consumes different kinds of food. What will the Jivatma consume? Adu attai thinnu, whatever karma is arising out of the good and bad deeds performed by the Jivatma inside the material body, the phalam of which is what will be consumed, he says. There is one verse by Vedanta Deshika who describes the beauty of Tamraparni river, banks of which, be it Nammalvar or Madhura Kavi Azhwar, were born. Mukta jalair janita pulinam shukti santana muktaihi tarapurnam divamiva tatas tamraparnim bhajetaha pratyasatya niyata vishadam pita sindhor maharshehe paniyam te parinamayita tatra mukta mayatvam. So it looked, when pearls were being held because of the slow waters of the river, it looked as if there were mounds of pearls and oyster shells. So to a moment, the celestials thought that the sky had turned upside down because these pearls looked like stars which are scattered in the sky. Manuvyasa prachetasa parisha darha kvachadiyam sudhasikta suktihi swayamudayam anvinchanti jane nirundyuhu kevindyachala vikatasindhya natajata paribhranta pangorupari yadi ganga nipatati. How does it matter who consumes the Ganga Jalam? How does it matter where the water falls? It has the association of Brahma's Kamandalam, it has the association of Vishnu's feet, it has the association of Shiva's Jata. So wherever it falls, it will bestow only auspiciousness. Similarly is this Tamil language. So Swami Nammalvar answered this question of Madhura Kavi Azhwar. That is when the association of Nammalvar with Madhura Kavi Azhwar began. And Swami Nammalvar describes the kshetram of Azhwar Tirunagari. He says, Onnum tevum ulagum uirum matrum yadumillavan nanmugan tannodu devar ulagodu uir padaittan. குன்றம்போல் மணி மாட நீடு திருக்குருகூர் அதனுள் நின்ற ஆதிப்பிரான் நிற்க மற்றை தெய்வம் நாடுதிரே. Why will you go to the gods of lesser powers like Indra, Chandra and so on, when you have the one who was present even when the world was not created? When nothing was created, Eka, he alone existed. So when you have this Lord who has no creator for himself, he is the creator of all creation, but he has a no creator for himself. So when you have such a Lord, why do you have to go to somebody else? Swami Nammalvar, he came up with beautiful verses, and those verses were compiled in the form of 4 beautiful prabandhams, and they are called Thiruviruttam, Thiruvasiriyam, Periya Thiruvandadi and Thiruvaimozhi. Parashara Bhatta states, Rishim Jushamahe Krishna Trishna Tattvamivothitam Sahasra Shakham Yodrakshim Dravidim Brahma Samhitam. The 1000 verses that we know, or the 1000 shakas that we know of Samaveda, have come to us in the form of an essence in the Tamil language called as Thiruvaimozhi. So here the 4 Vedas, Rig Vedam, Yajur Vedam, Sama Vedam, Atharvana Vedam, all 4 Vedas, they are not exact translations, but the essence of these 4 Vedas have been incorporated in 4 Prabandhams. This has been mentioned by our Acharyas. The first Prabandham, Thiruviruttam, is the essence of Rig Veda. Azhwars mentions this. Irukar mozhiyal neri ilukkamai ulagalanda thiruthallinai nilattevar vananguvar. Irukar mozhiyal, Irukar is Rik. Rikku mozhiyal, through Rig Veda the rishis venerate him. So Thiruviruttam is the essence of Rig Veda. Thiruvasiriyam is the essence of Yajur Veda. Why is it so? Because in this particular Thiruvasiriyam, time and again there is always prayer for Vamana Avataram, and it is in Yajur Vedam that Vamana Avataram is invoked time and again. Coming to the next Veda, which is Atharvana Veda, it is Periya Thiruvandadi which is the most important. The beauty is, if you remember, I had mentioned about the 3 Thiruvandadis, Mudal Thiruvandadi, Irandam Thiruvandadi, Moondram Thiruvandadi. But these are called by a certain name, Mudal, Irandu, Moondru, and then there is a Nanmugan Thiruvandadi, there is a Ramanusha Nuttandadi. But you will be surprised, of all the Thiruvandadi structures that we know, it is this Periya Thiruvandadi which is the least number of verses, but we call it Periya Thiruvandadi. It's an oxymoron. It has the least number of verses. It is called Big Thiruvaimozhi, Thiruvandadi, Periya Thiruvandadi. Why? Because there is one verse which goes like this. Azhwars has a dialogue with the Lord. Puviyum iruvishumbum ninnagatta. The entire creation that you see, O my Lord, is within you. Ninnagatta. நீ என் செவியின் வழி புகுந்து என் உள்ளாய் அவிவின்றி யான் பெரியன் நீ பெரியை என்பதனை யார் அறிவார் ஊன் பருகு நேமியாய் உள்ளு, says Azhwars. So he says, செவியின் வழி புகுந்து, how did you get inside my body? The Azhwars asks. He says, you have gotten through my ears. So the entire creation is within you, and that you has got inside me through the ears, and you have gotten inside me. செவியின் வழி புகுந்து என் உள்ளாய் அவிவின்றி யான் பெரியன் நீ பெரியை என்பதனை யார் அறிவார்? So the entire creation is in you, you have got inside me. Now you tell me whether I am great or you are great, because you are within me, so I should be greater than you, right? We may be wondering, sir, is it an act of devotion? No, it is an act of devotion. It's a beautiful conversation where Azhwars tries to convey the thought to us, the devotees, the astikas, that the Lord who is the creator of this entire universe, who is the Antaratma of our Jivatma, is within us. Do not keep searching for him everywhere else. He is within us. So this is Thiruvandadi, Periya Thiruvandadi and Atharvana Vedam. The 4 Prabandhas of Swami Nammalvar is akin to the 4 Vedas. Vedanta Deshika reminds us of this. आद्ये स्वीय प्रबंधे षठजिद अभिदधे संसृते दुस्सहत्वं द्वैतीयीके स्वरूपाद्यखिलमत हरेन् अन्वभूत स्पष्टरूपं तार्तीयीके सव्यकीयां भगवदनुभवे स्फोरयामास तीव्राम् आशां तुर्ये यथेष्टं भगवदनुभवादवाप्ति मुक्तिं षठारिः. So Azhwar mentions of this. Now let's go to Thiruvaimozhi, which is the essence of Samaveda. There he describes the feelings that he has for the Lord by seeing himself as the mother to a girl, where the girl's mind and heart is completely captivated by the Lord of Srirangam. So the girl has fallen head over heels in love with the Lord of Srirangam, but there is no such meeting, physical meeting that has happened. So she is aspiring to meet him. That aspiration becomes into frustration, and that frustration becomes into depression, and that depression turns into crying. So she has been crying to attain the Lord. And here the mother is also trying to help her. And as she wants to help her, she tries to convey the description of the state of her daughter to the Lord. Kangulum pagalum kantuil ariyal. Oh my dear Lord, my daughter is unaware as to what is day and what is night, because she has been crying so much and her eyes have swollen so much that she is not able to distinguish between what is day and what is night. Kangulum pagalum kantuil ariyal kannanir kaigalal iraikum சங்கு சக்கரங்கள் என்ன கைகூப்பும் தாமரை கண்ணென்னே தளரும் எங்கனே தரிக்கேன் உன்னவிட்டென்னும் இருநிலம் கைதொழாவிருக்கும் செங்கையல் பாய்நீர் திருவரங்கத்தாய் இவள் திறத்து என் செய்திட்டாயே. Won't you bother about her? She is just crying, thinking of the Lord. Please come and rescue her. So this is one pasuram. As we go further, in Nammalvar's life, there is an interesting incident that he thought of Krishna. He thought, Krishna, as a little boy, you happened to be tied to a mortar by Yashoda. How accessible you were, how humble you were. Though you are Paramatma, you are making yourself accessible to that lady in that cowherd clan. Understanding this, hearing about this, internalizing this, Nammalvar was unconscious for about 6 months, is what Guru Paramparam says. பத்துடை அடியவர்க்கு எளியவன் பிறர்களுக்கரிய வித்தகன் மலர்மகள் விரும்பும் நம் அரும் பெறல் அடிகள் மத்துரு கடைவெண்ணை களவினில் உறவிடை யாப்புண்டு எத்திரம் உரலினோடு இணைந்து இருந்து ஏங்கிய எளிவே, says Nammalvar. So Nammalvar's attachment to Krishna was universal. He says, உண்ணும் சோறும் பருகும் நீர் தின்னும் வெற்றிலையும் எல்லாம் கண்ணன். To me, whatever I eat, whatever I drink, whatever I chew is not the food, is not the water, is not the betel leaf. To me, everything is Krishna. Only if I keep thinking of him, I get energy. Otherwise, I lose. Well, while we are talking about the beauty of every language, we should understand from Bharatadesham we have numerous languages and dialects. Every language is beautiful. But when it comes from a historical point of view, Tamil happens to be one of the oldest spoken languages, just not of Bharatadesham but of the world, with its very, very well managed script, literature, and many areas of new excavation. It happens to be one of the oldest languages. Similarly, Sanskritam. But there was an objection raised in Tamil Nadu at that point in time, where people said that you cannot be singing in Tamil, which is not like Sanskrit, it's like any other local language. Vedanta Deshika defends Tamil and says, Bhasha Geetif Prashasta Bhagavati Vachanat Rajavachopacharat Sacha Agastyaf Prasutat Tviti Parijagrihe Bhumika Bheda Yogya Yattat Krityam Shrutinam Munigana Vihitaha Setihasaha Puranaihi Tatrasau Satvasimnaha Shatha Matana Munehe Samhita Sarvabhaumi. How does it matter if I sing praises of the king in a language that I know? As long as I am singing praises about him and the king is aware of it, that is more than enough. So how does it matter if I sing in Tamil or in Sanskritam? He asked Vedanta Deshika. Alvar, Nammalvar also has this habit of sending messages. While we are understanding the life history of Alvars, we should also understand the literature. He sends messages to the Lord conveying the point that he is in love with the Lord. So one of the messenger based pasurams goes like this: Amshiraya Madanara Yaliyattai Niyum Nin Amshiraya Shevalumai Avaven Nenakkaruli Vemshiraya Pulluyartarku Yenvidudai Shennakkal Vanshirayil Avanvaikil Vaipundal Yenshayumo. So this Swami Nammalvar, as he would dictate the prabandhams by having the Lord in front of him, they voluntarily coming to give darshan to Nammalvar and thereby him singing praises of them, those verses were compiled by Madhura Kavi Alvar. So he was the most devout, fervent scribe to Swami Nammalvar's great works. This Nammalvar later in his life is said to have given the Hamsa Mudra, a ring with the Hamsa's motif on it, to, as he gave that Hamsa Mudra, he gave it to Adivan Shatakopan, the first pontiff of Sri Ahobila Math. This has been mentioned here. Nijanagara Nibida Devatantara Nilaya Sambada Sankata Prashamana Paritoshita Hridaya Shatamatana Punipunga Vadatta Shriman Nrisimha Mathadipatya Nirvahana Chinna Hamsamudra Parishobita Karakamala. So Swami Nammalvar, his Prabandham is held as the most central to entire Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And on that Swami Nammalvar sang Madhura Kavi Alvar such beautiful praises that we will all keep remembering throughout our life. Now, as we have discussed Swami Nammalvar and Madhura Kavi Alvar, let us shift one state and go to this beautiful state of Keralam. In those days, though there was not a clear demarcation, it used to be called Pandya Keraladi Desham. So in that Kerala Desham was born a great king. He was called Kulashekara Peruman. And as he was called Kulashekara Peruman, people would remark, looking at him, that he was none but Rama because he was born in the star of Punarvasu. But to Kulashekara Alvar, the only thing that he aspired was to receive the benign blessings of Lord Sri Rama. Here goes the verse that celebrates the birth of Kulashekara Alvar. Kumbhe Punarvasu Bhavam Kerale Kolapattane Kaustubhamsham Dharadhisham Kulashekaram Ashraye. Vedanta Deshika brings the essence of Kulashekara Alvar in his Tamil verse. Ponpurayum Vel Kulashekarane Masi Punarvasuttelil Vanjikkalattu Thondri Anbudane Nam Perumal Shempor Koyil Anaithulagin Peruvalvum Adiyar Thangal Inbumigu Perunkuluvum Kan Manmel Kana Manmel Iruliriya Enduraitha Isayil Chonna Nanporul Sher Tirumoli Nooraindum Padum Nandraha Enakkul Sei Nalginiye. May the essence of this beautiful work called as Perumal Tirumoli last in my mind. So as he says this, he has sung two Prabandhams. A very unique Alvar is Kulashekara Alvar. He is the only Alvar to have sung in Tamil called Perumal Tirumoli, as well as in Sanskritam called Mukunda Mala. So in Mukunda Mala there is one verse which goes like this: Shattu Chedaika Mantram Sakala Mupanishad Vakya Sampujya Mantram Samsaro Tara Mantram Samupachita Tamas Tadya Gharga Niryana Mantram Sarveshwaryaika Mantram Vyasana Bhujaga Sandashta Santrana Mantram Jihve Shri Krishna Mantram Japa Japa Satatam Janma Saphalya Mantram. So he describes the importance of reciting the names of the Lord. And as he does this. At a very young age, Kulashekara Alvar, his mother, his father or people from the royal family did not bother to make him sleep. That is when Kulashekara Alvar later relishes the concept of lullaby, and in that he sings the best of lullabies to the Lord of Tirukkannapuram. Though the Lord of Tirukkannapuram is Krishna, Kulashekara Perumal, who was extremely attached to Rama, thinks for a moment that the Lord there is Rama and sings this beautiful verse. Manpugal Kausalai tan Manivairu Vaitavane Tennilangai Konmudigal Sindhu Vittai Shimpun Sher Kanninan Mamadil Pudai Shur Kanapuraten Karmaniye Yennudaya Innamude Raghavane Talelo. So he sings a lullaby to this Lord. Later he describes the emotions what Devaki would have had upon the separation of her beloved son Krishna, and who had to be the adopted son, who had to be nurtured by Nandagopala and Yashoda. So she describes what all feelings Yashoda would have had while looking at the pastimes of Krishna. முழுதும் வெண்ணை அளைந்து தொட்டுண்ணும் முகில் இளம் சிறு தாமரை கையும் எழில்கொள் தாம்பு கொண்டடிப்பதற்கு எல்கு நிலையும் வெண்ணை தயிர் தோய்ந்த செவ்வாயும் அழுகையும் அஞ்சினோக்கும் அந்நோக்கும் அணிகொள் செஞ்சிறுவாய் நெளிப்பதுவும் தொழுகையும் இவை கண்ட அசோதை தொல்லை இன்பத்து இறுதி கண்டாளே. He says, so this is a beautiful description of the motherly feeling what Devaki had. Later, while describing the Lord of Tirumala, he says, O Lord, if you are pleased with my devotion, give me that boon where, if at all there is another birth, I should be born as a fish in Tirumala. Well, the fish could be consumed by the bird. Let me be born as a bird. Then he says, if the bird has wings, it will fly away from this kshetram. So it will lose that unique fortune of staying in this kshetram. So let me be a stone. Let me be a thorn. Let me be a tree. Let me be the flower. Let me be the running waters. He describes everything and finally thinks, I should be that step. Kulashekara Alvar Padi or Kulashekaran Padi is what we describe, that particular step which is just in the eyesight of the Lord in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Because the Azhwars states, as devotees keep taking my name and walk on that step, the devotee's feet should touch my head. So it's called Kulashekaran Padi. After having said that I should be born as a fish, as a crane, as a tree, as a thorn, as a stone, as the running waters, as a step, he says, I shouldn't have asked for all of this because it is you who is Paramatma. We are subservient to you. How dare I had the audacity to ask what I should be born as? I should be anything in Tirumala. I will not say I should be this or that. He says, Ooneru selvattu udarpiraviyan vendeen Aanel Vendran Adimaithiramallal Kooneru Sangamidattan Tan Vengadattu Koneri Vazhum Kurugai Pirappene Tenar Punjolai Thiruvengadach Chunayil Meenai Pirakkum. Meen means fish. Meenai Pirakkum Vidiyudaye Navene Minvatta Shudarali Vengadakon Tan Bumidum பொன்வட்டில் பிடித்துடனே புகழ் பெறுவேன் ஆவேனே பண்பகரும் வண்டினங்கள் பண்பாடும் வேங்கடத்து செண்பகமாய் நிற்கும் திருவுடையேன் ஆவேனே எம்பெருமான் ஈசன் எழில் வேங்கடமலை மேல் தம்பகமாய் நிற்கும் தவமுடையேன் ஆவேனே தென்னவெண் வண்டினங்கள் பண்பாடும் வேங்கடத்துள் அன்னைய பொறுக்குவடாம் அருந்தவத்தேன் ஆவேனே தேனார் பூஞ்சோலை திருவேங்கட மலைமேல் கானாராய் பாயும் கருத்துடையே நாவேனே. So he describes what all he should be born as. While the Azhwar expressed his interest to be anything on Tirumala, where was he? He was in Kerala. What was he? He was a king. He had ruled his subjects really well with extreme care and love. He was a very, very qualified king. We may think that qualification and being in the political post are mutually exclusive, because if you're very qualified, why should I get into politics? And people who are in politics, are they qualified? But yes, we did have days when kings were extremely intelligent, very powerful, would fight the war, would be patron of arts and various other, they would construct temples. Rajaraja Chola, the king with the biggest naval fleet, constructed the Brihadishwara temple. So they had an eye for every art form as much as they were good at administration. So the only wish that he would tell his ministers that Kulashekar Alvar had was to visit the shrine of Lord Ranganatha in Srirangam. But imagine the king going on frequent pilgrimage tours, what will happen to the administration? The ministers wanted to stop him, so they would bring a few devotees in front of him every day so that he would stay back in the kingdom, take care of the administration, be hospitable to them, and then would plan for the next day. The next day again a set of devotees would be brought. So this has been put forth in a beautiful verse. Gushyate yasya nagare rangayatra dine dine tamaham shirasam vande rajanam kulashekharam. Kulashekar Alvar is either referred to as Kulashekar Alvar or Kulashekara Perumal. Why? Perumal in Tamil generally could indicate Lord Vishnu, but in specific, if you look at the commentaries, it will indicate Lord Rama alone. Kulashekar Alvar had extreme attachment and affiliation to Lord Sri Rama. He was born in the star of Punarvasu or Punarpusam, which is the nakshatram of Rama. So it did so happen that Kulashekar Alvar would listen to Srimad Ramayanam every day. One day the person who used to regularly narrate a Ramayanam could not come. He deputed his very own son to narrate Ramayanam. Looking at the interest level with which Kulashekar Alvar was listening to Srimad Ramayanam, the son of that narrator tried to dramatize the situation further. And that was that instance where Khara, Dushana and Trishiras, they had come in with an army of 14,000 Rakshasas to fight Rama, and Rama single-handedly had to manage them. Ekascha Ramo Dharmatma Katham Yuddham Bhavishyati, says Srimad Ramayanam. As this situation was being narrated by the narrator in a very dramatic way, Kulashekar Alvar was oblivious of the fact that they were living in a different time era and Ramayanam had already happened. But he immediately said, I order my army to now be ready with the horses and the cavalry. Let's all go to the Arabian Sea. For a minute, the narrator thought, what has happened to the king? Ramayanam has happened before. I'm just narrating. He thinks that those incidents are happening now. He started marching to the Arabian Sea. This narrator did not know what to do. He had overdone his job. So he went running to his father, the original narrator, and said what had happened. This father narrator went to that place and said, King, do not worry. The war has already gotten done. Rama has emerged victorious. Is it so? Won't Rama need my help? This narrator said, no. So everything is fine now. There's victory. Sri Rama Jayam. But Kulashekar Alvar was not convinced. He said, how do you know? And as he turned to the sky, he saw Sita in a very, very happy tone, happy mood, embracing Rama, who had emerged victorious in the war. So Kulashekar Alvar's attachment to Ramavataram is immense. There is one more incident where to bring about a separation of Kulashekar Alvar from the host of devotees that whom he would cater to every day, a group of ministers hatched a plan of putting the most valuable necklace of the king into the suitcases of the devotees and suddenly said, "Oh king, you have lost your chain, where could it have gone?" And then when the king was also clueless, these ministers said it could have gone to the bag of the Vaishnavas. That is when the king said, the Vaishnavas couldn't have stolen. The ministers said, we say he has stolen. Why did they say